Morning folks, Kevin here. Well, it's July 3rd, 2017. The wind's been up this week, cold. It's been wet up until the last 2 days, yesterday and today. And I've been trying to get all the garden beds set. Previously, I showed this area, this section of Zone 1, and this was the area that wasn't covered. I still have some more to do with the hoops and all. I haven't taken care of the weeds over there. We had quite a few weeds started up in all the holes. Certainly I'll turn this around. So here are the beds in this section of Zone 1. The locust tree there, that drops a lot of leaves in the fall, and certainly a lot of seed pods as well. So this, even with the weed mats down, the chickens would come through and work this whole area. So we elected not to tarp this area because during the early winter months we harvested a lot of broccoli and kale from here. We had a carrot cage, a dog kennel over in this section, the far area over here. And that was how we kept the cats and everybody out of the carrots. So right now we've got oregano planted along the margin, and the last couple of days I've been working on first removing all of the debris that was on the surface above the mats, taking that to quite a few loads out with the tractor, and then the next thing I did was smooth out the paths and try to make it so that we can walk on it without twisting an ankle. Now these beds were created early last summer. So this is all compost I made last spring. And so it was summertime when we started laying out all this area. This was the second time that I had excavated this area. I'll click to a link in the upper right hand corner that goes over the construction of these beds last year. And as a result, some of the areas decomposed as far as the paths and all. With all the wood chips, they broke down a little bit more quickly depending on the material that was chipped up and the size of the material. And certainly the chickens moved a lot of the material around as they would scratch and peck and tear at all of the worms. Underneath all of the non-matted areas were all the leaf mulch that dropped from that locust tree and from the maple and from the oak tree. All of those materials landed on here, and over the winter time a lot of dirt and debris from snow blowing ends up on here as well. So the chickens work through all that stuff. So I had to scrape all that off, put it in the loader, and that's used around. I topped some of the hugelkultur mounds, and I topped the area around the mulberry tree as well. So all that material is going to good use. So I really wanted to get rid of anything, even the chicken fecal remains. I wanted to make sure that didn't get into the beds. So once I got all of the areas between the beds, those walking paths, cleared down completely and got them smoothed out, then I went ahead and chopped off the main stalks to the broccoli and the kale plants that were here, removed all of those, was able to pull the pins holding down the weed mats, got the weed mats out of here. Then I went ahead and what I do after that, I think the next thing that I did was I came through and removed all of the weeds that had grown up on the margins of the weed mats and within the holes of the weed mat, because all the seeds are going to drop in those spots. I took those out, and they were used as mulching around the mulberry tree as well. Nothing goes to waste, even the weeds. And the next thing I did was I went ahead and broad forked all of the beds, which is really a wonderful tool, and it really improves the soil significantly with doing minimal damage to the soil. Then the next thing I did do was I brought into the center of the beds any higher elevated margins of the compost. You can see these still aren't perfectly flat and aren't perfect, but I'll be adding compost to these over the next couple of years. And ultimately, as the areas with the wood chips in between all of these beds gradually breaks down, that will be used to mound up and rebuild the beds. So this will change over time, but this is the basic conformation that we'll be using. So then the next thing that I did do after getting the edges of the beds mounded up towards the center, I got out one of my favorite tools. I have a 749 BCS two-wheel tractor. It's a walk-behind tractor that I got from BCS. It's an Italian-made two-wheel tractor. Really multiple tools that get attached onto it. I got the idea from Jean-Martin Fortier, the author of The Market Gardener. He really is. Eliot Coleman, Jean-Martin Fortier, and even Curtis Stone have really influenced the tools that I use and the methods and techniques that we're using here on site, based on proven small scale, no tractor use other than small two-wheel tractors, and really producing abundance of food. Our focus on the types of foods that we're creating here are a little bit different than theirs. They're looking for market return, but that's another topic. So once the rotary harrow or power harrow. So it looks like a rototiller when you see the tool working. What it does, it doesn't do, a rototiller comes in and it really, the tines of the rototiller run in a up and down, a vertical cycle. And that can compact the soil and really break down the structure of the soil. And it can do it pretty deeply. Rototillers often are running 4-6 inches deep. And it makes the soil nice and loose. You can put your fingers right down in the soil. That's absolutely fantastic. We're using the broad fork first and really allowing for air and water to get down into the soil at quite a depth. It just maintains the soil structure. I'll take a side note. Over on these beds, I ended up using the little tilther, and I may be able to show a little bit of that footage as well. That's a small little one that's typically used in greenhouses or high tunnels. So it's not a big gasoline, it's driven by a power drill. But over here I use the rotary harrow or the power harrow, which instead of running like the rototiller and going, so the shaft of the rototiller is horizontal and it's driven, the tines dig down and break up the soil and turn it over. Whereas with the rotary harrow, the shafts all come straight up and down, and they go in a clockwise or counterclockwise, I'm not sure which direction they actually go, and they, in a sense, just stir the surface of the soil. Yes, it does destroy the structure of a ½ inch down to 2 inches deep. I think it can go as deep as 2 inches. I set it for about 1 inch deep. So I am disturbing it, and it actually has a nice roller on the back of the rotary harrow, which really creates a beautiful seed bed and a really nice flat, beautiful bed, which makes things ideal for laying the mats down, for direct seeding with either an earthway or jang cedar or any of the other 4-row cedar, 6-row cedar. It makes life much easier so that the seed gets deposited prescribed distance and depth. So this tool is really ideal for for preparing a bed for direct seeding. Now we're going to be putting transplants in most of these beds, so that isn't as essential, but I find that this tool works extremely well. Now it doesn't work that great if your wood chips, you just put them down and they're still soft, there's still lots of airspace. The tool is quite heavy, the BCS tractor, it can start sinking down. But in most people's yards where they don't have real bony stuff, this is all gravel down below here. And so I build all the beds up. I took the excavator last year and excavated all the topsoil out, took out some of the subsoil, and started from scratch. We had bindweed and quackgrass that had gotten in, and I'll go over that in another video, how I actually got that on site. So I hope this information is actually useful for some homeowners, homesteaders, small-scale farmers and all. There's great information. A lot of these techniques that I'm using with respect to using either a rototiller that is adjusted so it only goes to a short depth, or the rotary harrow. There's lots of people doing it. You can Google that on YouTube. And Curtis Stone, I've stolen a lot of his techniques. This is an I'm implementing a lot of the information that he has shared with his great video logs on YouTube. They really are loaded with lots of great information. The guy's amazing, and how prolific he is with sharing information. Jean-Martin Fortier, he's sort of what I'd say the young man and young woman, young farmers go-to person, like Eliot Coleman is to some of us who've been around for a while. These are people who are constantly not only disseminating qualitative information, they're open to incorporating other people's techniques and sharing them. And Jean-Martin Fortier, he's gone from his small, I think 1.5 acre farm, and he's done a really fantastic of really upscaling it with several, he has the funding of a very wealthy donor who's investing in a system that's incorporating permaculturists, I would say large animal farming as well as even chickens. So most folks are really interested in, many folks are interested in incorporating all these modalities, especially those of us who are really interested in permaculture. The animal component I'm not that interested in, but I'm certainly interested in learning as much as I can and incorporating that information. So those are people I'd say to Google, and I'll make sure that their names, certainly the Market Garden. Curtis Stone has written a book yet. I haven't read that. I'm sure it's excellent. His video logs are great. So those are things that I think are kind of neat and kind of important. So since the wind's been calm, I'm able to talk a little bit, and I wanted to spend a couple of minutes showing you what I've been working on for the last couple of days on these beds behind me. So I hope this was somewhat informational. Please give us a thumbs up if you think it was of value. Leave comments and questions. I will eventually get to them. I'm just deadbeat tired at the end of the day, and at lunchtime when I go in to grab a bite, I try to do a little bit of video editing so I can get some of these out, or at least transferring tons of video footage to the computer. So please give us a like, share with your friends, and leave a comment. Let me know what you're thinking. I appreciate the feedback. This is fascinating to me. I love this sort of thing. Well, thanks so much for watching, folks. Have a fantastic day. Enjoy it. It looks like we're going to get some sun. Pretty cool. Bye-bye now.